So famous commentator Victor Davis Hanson, all over the YouTube, has a big presence. He is a contributor to a news organization. I forgot what it's called, but he was making a point that I made several days ago about the Polish Prime Minister commenting that why is 500 million Europeans asking 330 million Americans to defend against 140 million Russians. And Hanson Davis is saying, Europe is treating, Zelensky like he's a rock star, but they're complaining that the United States isn't funding the Ukraine war effort. So why is that? Well, it's actually really simple. The alliance would not exist without the United States. The United States is NATO's principal member. And NATO is actually an American institution, or that's what it was intended to be, to fight the Soviet Union. And the purpose was to get everybody on the same side against the Soviet Union so that you would conglomerate, you would have a larger pool of manpower and an economy to draw off from to build this big military that was supposed to deter the Soviet Union from invading Western Europe. So the Europeans are complaining because their principal member is no longer completely, head on to into trying to destroy Russia through Ukraine by destroying Ukraine. They want the United States to continue the policy that they already did. Now, if you remember, during the very start of the war, Germany at first did not want to go against Russia because a lot of their raw materials were coming from Russia. Natural gas, for example, from the Nord Stream pipeline. But, they depend on the United States, NATO, for their security, and it's necessary for that institution to continue because that's what allows for the EU, and that's what allows for Germany to export to these economies that don't produce their, manufactured goods as efficiently as Germany does. So Germany is kind of like the secondary, or like France and Germany are kind of like the secondary members, right? They're big populations. Strategically, they're important. And they're the ones that honestly benefit the most from NATO. Well, I shouldn't say that. Maybe historically. Really, Eastern European countries like Poland really benefits the most from NATO. But yeah, that's why they're complaining. They're complaining because the United States, because of the new administration, like that, changed their policy from grinding down Russia by destroying Ukraine to let's have a peace settlement. Well, their economies in Europe, Germany, for example, had already been destroyed because of that policy. And it's not going to look good for them politically if they just suddenly do a 180 like this. They're globalists. They have to, keep the veneer that they're electable, even though they're a velvet gloved iron fist. They're really authoritarians. But yeah, that's the reason why. Because they need the United States involved in order to keep their grift. And that's why they're complaining that the United States is not funding all this. Because the European countries, without NATO, would be all in competition with each other, and they wouldn't be able to have a coherent policy with regard to foreign policy. So that is my take on Victor Davis Hanson's take on what's going on with regard to Europe and Zelensky and the Trump administration.